Welcome to Personal Injury Law Unwrapped with Randy Ferguson.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Personal Injury Law Unwrapped with Randy Ferguson. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're diving into an issue that's becoming increasingly prevalent on Alabama's roadways, multi-vehicle car wrecks. In today's episode, we're joined by attorney Randy Ferguson, a seasoned personal injury accident attorney in Huntsville, Alabama. Stay tuned as we break down everything you need to know about multi-vehicle crashes and how to navigate these complex legal challenges. Randy, great having you here. Thanks so much for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So what makes multi-vehicle car wrecks in Alabama more complex to handle compared to a single car accident?
Well, they're usually much harder because you have a number of insurance companies, each car having a different insurance company. Sometimes some of the cars having the same insurance. And then oftentimes you have people with no insurance. And you've got to somehow sort out who's at fault, who hit who first, who hit who after the first impact. And it's very difficult to sort out the exact order of who is at fault and who caused whose damages.
Yeah, a lot of finger pointing, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, a lot of insurance companies trying to avoid saying their person didn't do it. A lot of people saying, well, I didn't start the accident. They can be very hard cases to investigate to really determine who caused whose damages and who is at fault.
Yeah, I would imagine. And speaking of, how is fault determined in a multi-vehicle crash? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of challenges that come with identifying that liability, as you mentioned. So how does that kind of process unfold?
Normally, they're all negligence cases. And that is, when you have 5 or 6 cars, the insurance companies normally are going to look and say, well, who caused the accident? You know, if it's the car in the back and they hit someone and then they hit someone, they hit someone, you know, it's the car in the back's fault. Oftentimes, though, the car in the front maybe got hit by the second car before they got hit. And so it's very hard to separate, you know, who damaged the front of your car. Was it your fault or the back of your car? Did they hit you first and they drove you into it? So they're hard to investigate. And usually people say they don't know who hit who. Sometimes people say they got hit once, sometimes they say they got hit twice. They're very hard just based on that. The insurance companies love to avoid paying on those cases because they try to point the finger at the person that started it and then the person who hit you from the back, you know, versus who you hit in the front. So it's very hard to do, especially when you have 5 or 6 cars.
Yeah, 5 or 6. My goodness, I can't even imagine that. It's like a highway crash or something like that too.
Yeah, it's like what you see on television. You know, you got 100 cars in some of these places where they have snowstorms.
Right.
And how you separate that, it's almost impossible in some cases. And your insurance company, everybody's insurance has to take care of their own unless there's some way just to prove this one caused it all. And again, that's a problem because if this one caused it all, there ain't going to be enough insurance to pay everybody.
Right. I was actually going to ask you about that because, yeah, if the person in back was texting or something and hit somebody, they hit somebody, and maybe even they hit somebody. Yeah, that car in the back's insurance probably can't pay out everybody.
Well, yeah, most people's insurance, you're going to have in an accident with 5 or 6 cars, you're going to have normally 1 or 2 that have no insurance at all. Even though the law requires it, that doesn't mean they have it. They'll get insurance and then cancel it, not pay it. And then you have some people that have, probably a majority of the people have the minimum policy, which is $25,000. Well, you know, if you've got 5 or 6 cars damaged, just the property is going to cost you $100,000 maybe. And there's not enough insurance. You'll have to have your own insurance cover it. And you may get a partial settlement. With a personal injury, you know, if you have $25,000, I've got a client that went to the emergency room and just got checked out, and it was $34,000 a couple of days. Well, you know, if you got 3 or 4 people hurt, and plus there may be people inside your car who got hurt.
Yeah, that's it. You can't just assume that it's only the driver in each car. You're right.
Yeah, and then it all comes down to, at that point, if you're hurt, to do you have uninsured, underinsured motorists, and do you have enough?
Talking to other lawyers before, they very much push the un or underinsured motorist coverage because apparently I feel a lot of attorneys have said that a lot of people don't have it and many don't even know what it is.
Yeah, most people don't know what it is because the insurance companies don't have to tell you. Now, in Alabama, you have to sign a document. And again, sometimes that's online and you don't know what you're doing. But you have to sign a document waiving uninsured, underinsured motorists. And of course, uninsured, underinsured are the same thing. One of them covers you if the person has no insurance. The other one covers you if they had an insurance, but not enough. You get them both if you get one. But yeah, most people don't know. And if they do, I ask them and they're like, well, yeah, but I don't know how much. You can get as much uninsured, underinsured coverage as you have in liability. So if you have 100, 300 in liability, you can get 100 of uninsured, underinsured also. People don't understand it's very cheap, but it's the most important insurance you'll have if you get hurt.
So you're another person who says, please, everybody get the uninsured, underinsured coverage.
Yeah, I've settled 4 car accidents in the last week. Every one of them had the issue of uninsured, underinsured. One lady had 51,000 in meds. The person that hit her had 25 in coverage, and she had 3 people in my client's car who were hurt. And it's like, what do you do? If there's no insurance, the people don't have any money. So suing them is a complete waste of time.
Yeah, it's just you just have a piece of paper at the end. So can you kind of walk us through your process of how you gather evidence in a multi-vehicle accident? What factors do you focus on, and just kind of walk us through your process?
Well, the first thing is you're going to get the accident report. And remember, that's hearsay. That's not an admissible document in court, because the police officer is just taking down what he or she sees, or what he's told. You're then going to get the statements, which oftentimes when you get your report, those statements aren't attached. So you want to get those statements. You want to talk to all of the people that were in the accident. You want to get all the names of the witnesses who are on there also who were not in the accident, and talk to every one of them first. You want to find out who all the insurance companies are. And sometimes you have to get some type of an accident reconstructionist to look at it and look at the damage to the vehicles and try to determine who's at fault. They're very expensive, accident reconstructionists. So you have to have a lot of damage to spend the kind of money you have to get for accident reconstructionists. And normally, again, you're going to go to the scene. You're going to look for marks on the ground. You're going to look for cameras. Are there cameras nearby where it happened? A lot of times these are on the interstate. There are no cameras. Even if they're in the city, most cameras don't cover the streets. They just cover the parking lots and things. You get everything you get. You talk to each, the person that was in the accident, your client, find out what their meds are. Find out who the person that hit them probably was based on the evidence, what kind of coverage they have. You get all the medical records from your client, their injuries, and then you kind of then look to determine, are you going to need uninsured, underinsured motorist? If it's a 5 or 6 car accident, usually, if you only have liability, you've got major problems, because if your car gets damaged, there's not enough insurance by the liable party to fix your car or replace it. So, a lot of people don't only have liability, which is all the law requires, but oftentimes you end up with no vehicle because you didn't have any coverage.
I know that it's important to get, to talk to your attorney or an attorney quickly after an accident in any situation. But I got to believe that it's even more important in these multi-car accidents, just because there's so many moving parts.
Well, the evidence disappears very fast. All the cars are taken to a different wrecker service or storage facility. The insurance companies pick them up, move them to a facility. Normally here it's one facility. A lot of places are where they send them. And those cars disappear. You've got to send out letters making sure people keep those cars and preserve that evidence, because the evidence, when it's gone, it's gone. There's no going back. You want to see if the car that hit your client, was there alcohol inside the car? Was anybody charged? So that evidence disappears really quick. And especially with truck accidents, when you have 18-wheelers and stuff involved, you usually have a team on the ground within 30 minutes of an accident happening. They're gathering evidence. They have groups that just show up automatically and do it. So a lot of the evidence, especially against trucking companies in multi-vehicle accidents, disappears really quick.
And as far as the insurance company's approach to a multi-car wreck, how does it impact the settlement process? Again, there's so many more moving parts. How does it change from, a 2-car accident?
It really depends on, number one, who's at fault. If it's the vehicle in the back, normally their thing is, look, you need to notify your insurance company if you have coverage, because there's not enough money. I had a case I'm working on actually now where it was a 1-car accident, 3 people involved. The problem is all 3 of them were minors that were hurt, and there's not enough coverage for them. So insurance companies normally will say, look, we can't get everybody rental cars. We don't have but 25 or 50 in coverage. We got 5 cars. It's our fault. So they're going to push you towards your own insurance, and then they're going to arbitrate or mediate with your insurance company when it's all over. They also love to say, well, my client didn't hit you. You ran into the back of that car first, and then my client got pushed into you. trying to avoid having to pay you anything, acting like it was the other person's fault and you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. Sometimes people are way too close behind people. If they were further, space between them, they wouldn't have ever happened. They get hit and then they hit the car in front of them and they're just 2 feet behind them when it starts.
Right.
That's still their fault, but it's also the fault of the person that hit them. So it's hard when you have a limited amount of insurance, those cases, insurance companies just, they can only pay what they got. And people don't understand. If somebody hits you, if they only have 25 in coverage, that's all there is. People think, well, my case is worth $1 million, and it is, but you ain't gonna get it. You're only going to get what you can get from the insurance company, because people don't have the money to pay those kind of claims. And what insurance companies do is they tell you to go to your own insurance. They try to pay a little bit to each person, and sometimes they get sued, but the insurance company basically just tells their client, look, that's all we're going to pay. You need to hire your own attorney to defend this because that's all the coverage you bought.
And if it does go beyond that, you can sue the person, but you can't sue the insurance company for more money.
Yeah, you can't sue the insurance company. You can sue your own insurance company if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, but you can't sue the insurance company. Everybody thinks you can. You got to sue the person that hit you. The insurance company then pays an attorney or their adjuster to defend the case or to work the case. The insurance company is only on the hook for what you bought. Mm-hmm. And if you bought 25 of coverage, you got 25 of coverage, and you can file suit and you can win and you can get a piece of paper that says you won $1 million, and it ain't worth the paper it's written on. Mm-hmm. If they don't have $1 million, where are you going to get it?
Yeah.
And of course, you don't go to jail if you don't have the money to pay a car accident. You don't go to jail.
Right. Yeah. What is your process for dealing with the insurance companies? Because obviously you're representing your client. You're working to get them fair compensation. How do you go about negotiating with various insurance companies? I mean, it's got to be, again, I keep saying this, but it just feels like it's so complicated.
I mean, it depends on the insurance companies. Certain insurance companies are completely different, where some of them, your Allstate, your State Farms and stuff are more likely to try to say, well, you were 1% at fault, therefore you can't get anything. That's the law. Alabama's a contributory negligence state or a contrib state. And if you're 1% at fault, technically, and a lot of juries don't go by this, but if you're 1% at fault, you get nothing in Alabama. Other states, if you're 20% at fault, you can recover 80. Can't do that in Alabama. So insurance companies hang their hats on, you were 1% at fault. And so it makes it difficult with some insurance companies to even deal with them. But you just have to, every insurance company we treat different, because we know that pretty much the way certain tricks of certain insurance companies and what they're going to do, and other insurance companies want their clients not to get sued, and they're completely different. So you have to really treat every insurance adjuster and company a little bit different. Now, the uninsured, underinsured carriers, let's say if you have a USAA and you have USAA uninsured, underinsured, your uninsured normally will work with you much better than the other person's insurance. But sometimes you get USAA on both sides, and then it's completely different. I mean, both people have USAA, you got two separate adjusters. And so you got to work every case a little bit different when that happens.
Yeah, I've heard that it depends, right? That's the lawyer answer is it depends, because everything's just so different.
Yeah, every adjuster is different. Every insurance company policy is different. Some of them try to avoid for different reasons versus other insurance companies. And, and it just depends. And then there's umbrella policies and other things. And so it's just one of those things you have to do on a case-by-case basis. Depending on who the adjuster is, you kind of have an idea of what they do.
Can you share a success story where your experience and expertise in handling multi-vehicle accidents led to a favorable outcome?
Well, we're actually working one right now that's very kind of unusual. 3-car accident. My guy is in the front. He gets hit. The person in the back's 4 cars back, going way over the speed limit, hits him. My client gets the worst of it, has a brain injury, is in the hospital for 4 days with a brain bleed, broken bones. And, the insurance company, it's a good policy. And by far, he's injured more than anybody else. But in his case, it's worth a lot, but it's also great in his case that he's very intelligent and he had really good uninsured, underinsured motorists. The insurance company has basically came in and said, look, we're at fault. By far, your client's got the worst injuries. and he wasn't at fault. So, we're just waiting on you to tell us a settlement offer. And my client's a great person. Money is not even the issue, which is unusual, but he hasn't talked about, hey, I want this or that. He's an older retired gentleman, and it's been an easy case to work. Great client, great insurance involved, and easy, fair outcome for him.
I hope he's okay.
He should be done with treatment hopefully this week.
Okay, that's good. Wow, that's a tough one. All right, well, thanks for tuning in to Personal Injury Law Unwrapped with Randy Ferguson. To connect with Randy and a team, head to fergusonferguson.com, and please like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Randy, so great chatting with you. Looking forward to doing it again.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.